George, I'm buzzing. We're going to Europe next season.
We're going to Europe, Frankie. I knew it.
We're all
I knew
going
it.
on a European holiday.
I just knew it was going to happen this season. Just knew it.
Yeah.
I know.
When we were losing 3-0 away at Fulham, I knew it. I believed, I steadfastly believed that Europe was on the cards. Absolutely. And we would have waltzed to it. It's just unbelievable, isn't it, mate? It's just, it's been a long time since Villa were in Europe. Yeah. So the thought of us playing away in wherever, I don't care. It could be on the dark side of the moon. It could be on the Jupiter's moon, frozen moon, Europa. I don't care. The thought of Villa playing against the frozen moon, Europa's first 11 is just exciting me. It's so much, George.
Very exciting.
I don't know how we get away tickets to Europa, but it'd be tough. But look. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. It's called Europa.
Yeah, I thought that was the pun.
Didn't even make the connection there. An accidental pun. So yeah, I'm just buzzing. And I'm still, it's a few days now since the Brighton win, but I'm still riding the crest of an enthusiastic wave. Just knowing that Aston Villa have made it into Europe, and to think what an incredible achievement it was by Professor Unai. And what an achievement it was by the players as well. So George, with your cat currently accosting you, I will ask, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel very good, Frankie. I feel great. I feel fantastic. It's been a long time coming. We're a long-suffering fan base, aren't we? It's been 13 years since we were in Europe. So, for a club of our standing, our stature, that's a long time to be waiting for it. And it's come in the most unexpected of ways, hasn't it? I mean, when we were, as you say, when we were getting thumped 3-0 away to Fulham, Europe felt like a long, long way away, didn't it? But in a few short months, Professor Unai's come in and he's just wonders. He's a magician, isn't he? Managing to turn this club around without really making any changes to the team, aside from Moreno, of course. So yeah, it's just been phenomenal. And I actually watched the game in a little sort of bar in the Netherlands this weekend. So I was on the continent, so I got a sense of what it might feel like, perhaps to be playing. I wasn't too far away from Alkmaar, actually, who are obviously they played in the Conference League against West Ham, didn't they, in the semi-final recently? So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a sense of what it would feel like to follow the Villa abroad, and it's just a really, really exciting prospect. And we've talked about this before about opportunities and chances to win the competition. If West Ham can get to the final, if they can win it potentially, Rangers got to the final of the Europa League. I think we've got a real chance, particularly with Emery at the helm and with a few additions this summer. To challenge and go far in the competition and take it seriously. Again, it goes back to what I was saying before about the previous times we were in it in recent years. Well, not so recent years now, but under O'Neill, we just didn't take it seriously. I don't think you'll get that with Emery. I think he will, play very competitive sides, and he'll want to win, all the games that we play in it. So it's a really, really exciting time. Just the thought of, watching a draw, a draw for a European Cup competition where Villa are in the hat is really, really intriguing and exciting. So, yeah, I just can't wait for it to begin now, and hopefully we'll have a really exciting summer too in terms of transfers to prepare for it.
I'm already booking my space for the Open Top Bus Parade next season, George. I'm going to be right outside Snobs, just so I can walk straight in there and we can relive our glory days, go into the indie room, but you said you were near Alkmaar watching the game. I hope you were preparing for did you see that West Ham fan?
Knowlesy. Yeah,
Knowlesy.
Yeah.
All right, he had a right old ruckers, didn't he? Little old daff up with the Dutch lads, didn't he? Yeah.
Are you gonna be our Knowlesy?
Well, I'll watch. I'll be. I'll command from Rosed.
Yeah. You'll call the authorities and make sure that it's all dispersed.
I'll say all the insulting things, and then run behind our Knowlesy. Me and you will be like Roman centurions with our shields, standing up to the Alkmaar fans as they try and storm us. But yeah, bring them on. Yeah, can't wait. I feel like with Professor Unai, the way he approaches the game, the way this club invests, I just think we can take anybody on. I
Yeah,
really do.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, it's been a long old season, and we've now reached this. We've reached this point now, and it's all done and dusted, and we can breathe a huge sigh of relief. But as we said at the start of the show, this is a season review. So the good and the bad, the highs and the lows. Let's have a look back on this season as a whole. Frankie, what did you make of it? I mean, where do you start? It's been frantic, hasn't it?
It started off as if like it was a Mark Lawrenson soliloquy.
Well, I don't really like football. I don't know why I watch it. I just watch Villa lose all the time. I don't know.
And then it became just this buzzing, exciting, just a great orator performing to the world. It was just magic. To go from the very depths, from the bottom of the very bottom to the very highest highs, to go from the Earth's core to the top of Mount Everest. That is how it felt to go from the absolute useless reign of Steven Gerrard in the first quarter of this season, which it was. It was rubbish. It was counterproductive. Nothing went right. He was, I heard the Football Ramble, a great podcast, describe him as a cheerleader the other day. I think the way I would describe it is Steve, you big bollocks. He comes in, he thinks he's Billy Big Bollocks. He says, you look me in the eye, I'm going to walk around and just be Alex Ferguson. All the coaches are going to do whatever. And I'm going to come in with all my aura and my presence. And you're just going to, all the players are going to perform because I'm Steven Gerrard. I'm the man. I'm Steve, you big bollocks. But you know what? That soon got exposed. And it got exposed in the first 2 minutes of the season at Bournemouth. We couldn't defend a set piece to save our lives while Gerrard was there. Now, so within 2 minutes, Bournemouth score and Villa were awful. That game was the biggest shock, after, a heavy investment in the summer, after a decent enough pre-season, after giving time to Gerrard to be like, do you know what, you've got time to, instill whatever it is that your style of play is, get these players believing. Instead, it was confusing. Instead, he was saying to people like Tyrone Mings and Aston Villa stalwart, look me in the eye, all that very alienating, weird approach. He had every right to name his own captain. Fine, I get it. But it was just weird. And from that moment on, the shock of that loss to Bournemouth, who themselves were in a terrible spot, if you remember, with Scott Parker and the things that have been happening that summer, for us to then, just be as bad as we were. And then I went to the Crystal Palace game, and I've said it a few times, that was where I was fully checked out with Gerrard. I was like, that was third game of the season. Villa had no tactics. We didn't know how to press forward. Our defenders would pass and pass and pass to each other with no way of getting out of our own third. John McGinn was being played in the Douglas Luiz role. Douglas Luiz was on the bench. Emi Buendia didn't start a game at home until Gerrard left. I mean, I'm just saying all these things in just total bewilderment of what happened. So then when Unai Emery came in, the professor, the man who I want to get a tattoo of on my face, the man who I want to write poetry to, the man who I've started to learn knitting for because I want to knit my own blanket of tributes to Professor Unai. If I was an architect, everybody who commissions me was saying, why does this building look like the face of Unai Emery? That's how much I love the man. Seriously. He's been incredible. And so he came in. And what he's done is he's shown he's shown a high footballing IQ in that every single game we play in, it looks like Villa have a different approach, or we have a game plan. We have a way of potentially negating a team, as you saw against Newcastle, who never lose. We battered them. And as you saw against Liverpool, who won 7 games in a row. And we stopped, the Trent Alexander-Arnold, who'd been causing havoc in recent games. And then on top of that, he has a high EQ, the emotional quotient, in that he clearly connects with these players on some kind of emotional level, making them believe in how good they actually are. Because these are really good players. I think in the Gerrard era, there was a sense that, these players might not be up to it, or these players can't play the way he wants. And instead, actually, these players were up to it. They just weren't being trained right. They weren't being coached right. And now we have a manager who doesn't sit around all week, playing Grand Theft Auto all bloody week in his gaming room. Instead, he's sitting there watching video after video of Fulham, of Bournemouth, of whoever it is. working out a way that Villa can play against them. And he's instilled a style of play that's completely transformative, that makes the team look really confident on the ball from back to front, anywhere on the pitch. And it's resulted in Aston Villa being one of the best teams in the Premier League, looking like a team that can take on anyone. You know, we're not Man City, but we're teams that can take on anyone on our day, and we're a team that can aim for the absolute, whatever we want right now, with a manager who has got the fans believing, the players believing, everything. It's a real, it's been a fun. Whatever happens with Emery now, wherever this goes, I'm confident it's going to continue in a positive trajectory. But what he's given us in this half season, getting us into Europe, it's been absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I think what Emery has instilled is just a sense of professionalism and experience, and it is chalk and cheese, isn't it? Both in terms of performance and personality. I mean, Emery is such a humble man. He always talks about the fans. He's very deferential. He doesn't really talk about himself and his ability, even though it's plain to see how gifted he is as a football coach. Whereas Gerrard was all kind of, the ego, the big talk, but very little in terms of actual production on the pitch and evidence that he was a capable manager for us. So, if we kind of look back over the early games that we played, I mean, the Bournemouth game, obviously the opener is the one I look to straight off the bat and think that was the moment, really. First game of the season where I thought we might be in trouble here. I know there might be some people listening thinking, well, it was away, it was against, a newly promoted side. But, bearing in mind, Steven Gerrard had a full pre-season. He brought in his signings early, and he brought in players that, were supposed to kind of do the business. We were talking last season about how he needed a Kamara type figure, ideally Kamara. We managed to get him in early doors. I know Carlos, unfortunately, was injured early in the season, but we brought him in for that game against Bournemouth as well. And they just looked completely clueless against a side that had been newly promoted, sure, and it was their first game of the season. But on paper, not the strongest side by any measure. Okay, they've obviously stayed up, and fair, credit to Gary O'Neill for doing that. But this was Scott Parker's Bournemouth that did struggle in the early stages. And we could have lost that 3-4-0 in the end.
We didn't have a shot on target. We didn't have a shot.
Yeah, it was
shocking. It was a shock.
It was pathetic. But then that was followed up with a win at Villa Park against Everton,
which was awful as well.
Which was terrible. We were
Lampard
so
versus Gerrard, two of the worst managers of the season, playing against each other.
Yeah. I mean, but that was, on paper you think, okay, well, that's 3 points in the bag. Let's see how we respond. And then we get thumped by Palace, a game that you were at. Again, you're looking at the performance just to see if there's any kind of shoots of recovery, and there just isn't any. I mean, Palace didn't even have to come out of second gear to beat us. And then, we've got defeats against West Ham, Arsenal, a horrible draw against Leeds, where they were down to 10 men for large chunks of the game, and we offered nothing. And then, you come to the Chelsea game, where Gerrard said beforehand that, Chelsea should come to Villa Park and be, and should thump us pretty much. It's it was not just the way we were set up on the pitch that wasn't working. It was kind of just his mentality and the way he was speaking, the way he was conducting himself, which just didn't feel like we had a connection with him.
None at all.
Again, chalk and cheese to how the fans have taken to Emery. We feel like, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, don't we? And that was never the case with Gerrard, either with the players or the fans. As I say, he ostracized himself from Tyrone Mings. He, gave McGinn the captaincy, but played him out of position. So he struggled to assert himself, but then had the pressure of trying to lead the side. And just all of it just wasn't working. And we plugged away with him for so long. And eventually became that game against Fulham, which was it really was the cherry on top, wasn't it? It was just that moment where we were so lost. We were hoofing balls forward. There seemed like there was no strategy. There was no sense of trying to change the game. It was like, well, he couldn't change the game with the substitutions that we made. And again, Fulham could have won that game 4-5-0 in the end. It was such a comfortable win. And then he had the toxic moment where, the fans are calling for his head. And
Sawiris stormed out of that game, didn't he? Nassef Sawiris was there and he stormed out.
He did. And Gerrard walked off the pitch. He didn't even acknowledge the fans. And then, from that point on, the writing was on the wall. But then, the second half of the season, just unbelievable. I mean, getting Emery in was a huge coup for this club. Obviously at the time we were thinking about, Emery wasn't even on our list really, was he? We did a show about who the potential candidates were, and Emery barely featured.
Never dreamed we'd get him. Someone like Emery.
Because we never
dreamed that.
We never thought he'd come. But then obviously,
considering where we were in the table at the time,
of course, yeah. I mean, we were a few points away from the drop zone, weren't we? So for him to come in and buy into the project, and Sawiris to go and meet him personally to try and sell him the project, credit to him. And again, it shows the commitment that the owners have to trying to make Villa a successful team, and it starts with the manager. And Emery was absolutely the right man to bring in. And immediately he sort of changed the culture. I mean, he started with that incredible win against Man United.
What a way to start!
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, and that set the tone for the rest of the season. It was just phenomenal. There was a slight lull, I think, maybe after the World Cup break, where we lost to Liverpool at home. I mean, they are Liverpool, but again, our performance was okay. We had chances to get something from that game, and that's what you want. In every game, you just want to be competitive. You might win, you might lose, draw, whatever, but you always want to be in games. And that was something that I didn't really notice under Steven Gerrard, but certainly under Emery. Even the games we lost, we were creating chances, and we were competitive. So yeah, I mean, just standout games I can think of was obviously Tottenham away. I would say obviously Newcastle, Chelsea away. Just some incredible results and performances. So yeah, it's just incredible that we've managed to do what we've done, and Emery has been at the spearhead of all of it.
Absolutely, he's it's just transformative, and it's the first time in such a long time that I've really felt we have a manager who I just totally believe in everything he does, no matter what decision he makes. Including today, Ashley Young has left Aston Villa, as it's been announced by the club. Again, I was a bit like Kendall Roy in Succession, just looking off solemnly into the distance at all times. But when I found out, but at the end, I get it. I really would have loved him to stay in the ideal world, because I think he's just been such a fantastic servant to Villa, one of our greatest players of this century. But easily, he was. I think it was James Rushton, House of V newsletter, had been on his podcast before, described him as Grealish before Grealish, which is what he was. He was that Grealish figure, playing on the left, cutting in on his right, the attacking fulcrum in the Martin O'Neill golden era. And then he went on and had a fantastic career at Manchester United and Internazionale. And then came back to Villa, and the intelligence of this player to have not just adjusted from a Grealish style role in a team to become a player who is, such a good defender, positioning his body so well, so good at just cutting out the most skillful attacking plays you can think of, doing a stand-up job against all of them. And then even at Inter, where he was more of a, attacking, bombing on winger, essentially. Amazing. What a career, what a player, and what a servant to Aston Villa. And I have nothing but good things to say about Super Ashley Young.
Yeah, I mean, what a servant he's been in both spells with the club. I know in the first spell he perhaps left in fairly acrimonious circumstances, but in hindsight you can't necessarily blame him. I mean, it's Man United. He's certainly not the first, and probably won't be the last Villa player to leave us for Man U. And he went on to achieve lots with the club, and subsequently did some fantastic things abroad with Inter, as you say, and has come at the age of, when he joined us, probably he was 36, wasn't he, when he joined us? And he's just incredible. He's 37 now, and could still do a job in the Premier League, and more than a job. He's a very good Premier League player. He hasn't aged, it would seem. It's incredible. But you'd think any club coming up, a Luton or a club like that would be very wise to approach him to sign a deal with them, because the experience he's got, his mentality, his personality, he seems quite an infectious character. And even if he wasn't going to play that much next season, I would have been tempted to keep him on just for that alone, to have that, as I said, that experience playing in the European competitions, which not many of our players do, but he does. It would have perhaps been beneficial. But in Emery we trust, as we say, and there's a reason behind that decision to not extend his contract.
Yeah.
It could suggest that we've got a really big summer in mind. We'd have to replace him in some way.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll be missed, and also his versatility, the fact he could play as a midfielder, a fullback, a centre half if he wanted to. He can fill up plenty of roles. So that will be a loss as well. But as I said, and as we mentioned already, Emery is almost, he's getting to the point where we almost shouldn't really question what he does, because he's proven it on the field and proven it in terms of his ability. So yeah, disappointed to see him go for sure, but credit to him for coming back and putting in a hell of a shift for us again. And he leaves with nothing but respect, which is perhaps not what he left with the first time that he departed.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick personal roundup of what I think the main awards would be for this season. And I want to know what you at home watching this think about what I got to say and the award categories as well. Now, first of all, who was Aston Villa's player of the season in your mind? For me, whilst it was Douglas Luiz who was selected by the players and the supporters, you can't really disagree with that, can you? So you got to go with Douglas Luiz, because he's been superb. Every time he's ever featured in the team, he's been a player who connects the defence to the forward line so well. He's a player who just acts as that constant fulcrum, the engine that just keeps going and going and going, just whirring like a Lamborghini, and you hear that engine just purring. That's what Douglas Luiz is. He's that purring engine. A superb player, technically excellent, a player who I think that for years, I said it before in this podcast, that I've always felt when I've watched Douglas Luiz, there's technically a really good player there, and there have been moments of Villa where he's been superb. And that I could see why Pep Guardiola was unhappy to lose him when he did. City lost him because they couldn't give him a work permit, because they couldn't guarantee enough games. Aston Villa, in contrast, were able to do that. But I could see a scenario in which Douglas Luiz played for Man City as a player who was in the midfield and just simple pass, and then every now and again pushes forward and, it's a Douglas Luiz goal. Perfect Pep Guardiola player. And I think at Aston Villa, we played him as a CDM for a long time because we didn't have a Boubacar Kamara for years. So we were playing effectively McGinn in the Douglas Luiz role and Douglas Luiz in the Kamara role. And whilst both of them did well in it, I don't think it's where either of them truly excelled. And I think that finally the arrival of Boubacar Kamara has liberated Douglas Luiz. The departure of Gerrard and the arrival of Unai Emery has also helped Douglas Luiz big time. Douglas Luiz well deserves that Player of the Season award. But if we were to also look at other players, you could easily go for Tyrone Mings. That's personally where I think I fall, just because considering where he started this season, as looked me in the eye. Well, he looked him in the eye, and Steven Gerrard should be looking him in the eye right now, going, "I'm very sorry." I tell you what, Tyrone Mings, he's a man who he oozes cool. He oozes cool off the pitch, and he oozes it on the pitch. That Villa high line that we play is really difficult to pull off. We catch fantastic Premier League players, world-class players, offside week in and week out. Marcus Rashford, Son Heung-min, two players I can think of off the top of my head who were constantly caught by that offside trap. Liverpool away. How many passes did they try and send through and it would just go too far out of play, or it would go straight to our keeper? And that high line, you have to say Tyrone Mings' leadership, as fantastic as Ezri Konsa's been as well, Alex Moreno, Cash, that ultimately I can't help but think that that backline works because Tyrone Mings is there as that big presence. And it's not just what he does at the back, it's what he does pushing forward. He hasn't made any mistakes that he's been identified of making. Under Unai Emery, he's not made a single one that I can think of. He's been an absolute colossus. He deserves the England call-up. Totally, he should be starting. So Tyrone Mings, I think he's my personal player of the season. You look at Ashley Young over the year; he had a super year. Even enjoyed the Gerrard time. Boubacar Kamara was superb as well. But I think Emi Martinez as well. John McGinn, Ollie Watkins. My God! Listen how high pitched my voice is going. Incredible. But Tyrone Mings, the man I call Ty, the God of Thunder. What should happen is he should climb up to the top of Mount Olympus. Zeus should move aside and let him sit in his seat. That's what should happen. Ty, the God of Thunder, a godlike defender, and one of the greatest signings Aston Villa has made this century. Now, another award. What is moment of the season for me? It has to be getting Unai Emery in. Simple as that. Aston Villa don't get into Europe. Aston Villa don't finish in the league where we did, unless Unai Emery joined the club when he did. So that for me is where I sit. I think Unai Emery joining Aston Villa was hopefully a transformational moment, not just for this season, but a transformational moment for where Aston Villa can go in the next years, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and forever. Thank you, Professor Unai. As I said, if I was an architect, every building I design would look like Unai Emery. And people would say to me, why did you do that? And I'd say, Unai Emery looks over us at all times. I sound a bit like a bit of a over the top and stupid, but this is me riding on the crest of a post Brighton, post qualification for Europe wave. And I'll say what the hell I want because it's been a long time since Aston Villa fans got to enjoy something so much as this. And I'm going to milk it for all it's worth. Goal of the season. Tricky Traore against Leicester sticks out. Another redemption story for him. Sent off to Turkey, comes back and gets an all-important goal that, ultimately helped us get into Europe. But I think my goal of the season, weirdly might be John McGinn against Chelsea. Mainly probably because I was in the stadium. So I had a great view of it, and it was one of the rare occasions ever in my life I've filmed anything at a football match. And I was just standing behind the corner, and I thought, well, maybe something will happen, so I'll just catch this, whatever. And then, lo and behold, I went and caught what's probably my favourite goal of the season. I think it was a short corner in, and then it works its way to Jacob Ramsey, and Ramsey lays it on to John McGinn, and a great finish. And I think it was McGinn's first goal in 16 months. It was the final nail in the coffin for Graham Potter at Chelsea. And it was just the completion of a huge win for Villa, a statement win at a stadium we don't often get great results at. So that for me was my favourite goal, I think. Biggest disappointment of the season, the whole Gerrard reign, quite frankly. I'd have to say the Bournemouth away, first game of the season, the 2-0. Bournemouth were in a state of absolute abject awfulness at that point. They'd not made the right signings. Scott Parker had complained himself before the season started about where they were. So for Villa to turn up with the backing that Gerrard had that summer, for Villa to turn up with Gerrard having an entire pre-season to get these guys ready, to turn up and look so clueless, so abject, not have a chance shot on target. So it looked like they were going to get concede a goal with every set piece. That was a real shock, and a moment that I think even then at that moment, I thought Villa might be in a relegation fight. 2 weeks later at Crystal Palace, when we lost 3-1, was when it confirmed to me that Gerrard wasn't up to it. So that to me, I think maybe the Bournemouth away loss was my biggest disappointment. And then match of the season, I think the best performance Villa have had in about maybe I've seen Villa have in decades. I mean, decades, plural, was the 3-0 win over Newcastle. Newcastle don't concede. Everybody's been hyping them up all season, and they've deserved it for how well they've done. Eddie Howe's done a fantastic job to get them into the Champions League places. Best defence in the league. Villa turned up and smashed them off the park, and it could have been 6-0. But you know what? I think my match of the season is Manchester United. Manchester United 1, Aston Villa 3 at Villa Park. Unai Emery's first game, and what a way to start it off by ending the 27-year curse of Villa failing to beat Manchester United at home. You'd got to the point where you wondered if it would ever happen, and it was going to take a special character to ensure it did. And it was that moment, that game, that made you believe that something special might happen. I was there in 1995 when Villa beat them 3-1. I was sat in the Trinity Road for that. And it was the Never Win Anything with Kids match. And 27 years later, I was sat in the Trinity Road again when Villa finally beat them again 3-1. So that for me was a very special moment. I think it couldn't have started better for Unai Emery in that day. And a special performance. Villa were fantastic. The crowd, like they were against Brighton, was just unbelievable. And you know the terms, stuck the ball into the goal? That's what it felt like that first goal was from Leon Bailey. The crowd just made it happen. So look, those are my thoughts. Like and subscribe with what you think. And let me know in the comments below what you think with what I've just said. Oh my goodness, it's been good, hasn't it? I'm going to go off and have a few sangrias to celebrate Unai Emery, to celebrate what has been a fantastic season. And thank you to everybody this season who has tuned in and checked out this channel, likes it, subscribes to it, all the good stuff. And there'll be plenty more to come this summer. I'm going to keep right on top of it, and plenty more to come next season as well. Up the mighty Villa. And where can we go? How high can we go? Would you bet against this great football team? I wouldn't. Would you? Up the mighty Villa.